And finally, we are honored to have Dr. Kim Cobb, the Georgia Power Chair, Advanced Professor, and Director of the Global Change Program at Georgia Tech in Atlanta. The doctor's research uses observations of past and present climate to advance our understanding of future climate change impacts. She has received numerous awards and is honored to be a lead author for the IPCC Sixth Assessment Report. With that, let me, Doctor, time is yours.
Thank you so much, Chair Ben-Grijalva, for inviting me to participate in this important conversation. As a climate scientist, I'm very grateful for the opportunity to reflect on the critical role that science plays in keeping Americans safe. Even as we speak, millions of healthcare and other essential workers are putting their lives on the line in an effort to keep us safe, and I want to recognize their sacrifice and express my gratitude not only to them, but to the families that support them in that work. The essential role of scientists, including epidemiologists, virologists, and public health experts, is on full display as they provide decision makers with the best available data and model output. Even so, COVID-19 safeguards came too little too late for many in my home state of Georgia and across the country. Dire warnings from experts across the country and around the world went unheeded for weeks on end. It is now clear that the most vulnerable Americans are paying the steepest price, especially low-income communities of color. This trend is especially stark in Georgia, where a recent CDC study revealed that 80% of COVID-19 patients in several hard-hit hospitals were African American. According to statistics compiled by Georgia's Department of Public Health, African Americans comprise 50% of COVID-19 deaths, but only represent 32% of Georgia's population. These same communities are also uniquely vulnerable to another escalating global threat, man-made climate change. There is no doubt that the most vulnerable among us will bear the brunt of the losses from climate change, sometimes with their very lives. America faces a stark, urgent choice. Science tells us that we must work aggressively to reduce our emissions in the next 10 to 20 years, or face a future of accelerating climate impacts that will threaten our food supplies, our water supplies, our infrastructure, our economy, our national security, and the very lives of vulnerable frontline communities. Climate losses are already piling up. Every year, extreme rainfall, coastal flooding, staggering heat waves, and wildfires play out like scenes out of a science fiction film. Except that these impacts are all too real, and they were avoidable if we had acted upon scientific guidance from decades ago. As party to the Paris Agreement, the United States has committed to act on climate science findings. As a country, we are well on our way thanks to the evidence-based policymaking by governors and mayors across the country and to a public that is hungry for climate solutions. However, the Trump administration has turned a blind eye to decades of robust climate science findings since its very first days in office in a relentless pursuit of fossil fuel interests, even as the warnings from our climate science community have become more dire and our time to avoid the worst case climate outcomes has ticked down. Here are some of the lowlights from the administration's fossil fuel driven agenda. It signaled its intent to pull the US out of the Paris Agreement. It has relaxed restrictions on methane, a very powerful greenhouse gas. Just weeks ago, it rolled back fuel efficiency standards that would have saved Americans money at the pump while reducing deadly air pollution, revoking California's right to set their own fuel efficiency standards in the process. They've bypassed long-standing review processes designed to set air pollution standards at safe levels for Americans, disregarding their own expert recommendations to tighten those standards. As you've heard, this agenda has continued during this pandemic. Make no mistake, the sustained pursuit of this agenda requires undercutting the very mechanisms designed to ensure that policy is shaped by the best available science. In a recent study by the Union of Concerned Scientists, Dr. Gretchen Goldman, federal employees report a loss of scientific integrity that is particularly pronounced at the EPA and the Department of Interior. Keeping Americans safe means letting science be the guide for policy. And right now, that means a rapid shift away from fossil fuels and the infrastructure and outdated policies that perpetuate our dangerous dependence on them. Several months ago, we could never have imagined how our lives would change in the last few weeks, seemingly overnight. Let's hope that Americans are newly equipped to see our climate future with new eyes. In one future, we watch helplessly as climate change ravages our infrastructure, our food, our water, our nation's biodiversity and thriving coastlines, and tears at the very fabric of society, and we wonder what might have been. In another future, we enjoy cleaner air and healthier lungs, cleaner water, well-paying clean energy jobs, and a thriving economy fueled by developing the best solutions to the global climate crisis. We can start walking that path today by making data-driven investments in our low-carbon energy future. For a safe, thriving America, science must be our compass. This is true in the best of times, but as recent events have shown, it is especially true in the worst of times. Thank you.